Welcome to another edition of the Waterboys podcast. Julian back here with you. On the other side of the Zoom call, it is Frank Pavan. Frank, say hello to the people.
What's up, everyone? Episode 17. Honestly, I know you said last
It's
week
17? I thought it was 18.
Oh no. I've
Oh,
made a
no.
mistake. I have no clue which episode this is.
Oh, no. What
let's
is
double
it?
check.
Is it 17? It's 18. You wrote 18 in our notes.
It's true.
It's 17 for Dan Schulman. You did.
18 it is. My bad. Episode 18. It's not even like in the hundreds of episodes. There I understand it. It's still the two digits, and I got it messed up. Not even in the 50s.
Dude, don't even worry about it, man.
Yeah. But no, what I was going to say.
Don't worry about it, dude.
What I was going to say is that the last couple episodes, I know you made note of it last week, as we opened up with the weather. This time I'm going to open up with is when we got to get these things recorded in person. We got to get this going.
I want to know, I guess like I imagine Watch Mojo would have like a studio for us, but also
For
just
sure.
like, what's it going to be like when you and I are doing a show in person? Like, what are I've done a bunch of podcasts before.
Yeah.
And the dynamic you have when you have like your partner with you and you're looking at them, if like you're doing an interview with somebody, or you're trying to make a point, you're trying not to talk over somebody, like what is that going to be like? Because doing it over Zoom versus doing it in person, two completely different skill sets here. So I'm intrigued for the idea of what our chemistry will be like when we are in the same room. We've been in the same room before. We've known each other for a bit here, so it's not going to be like, wow, like a whole new person I'm going to be doing a show with. It's just going to be really interesting because through this podcast, we've gotten to know each other even more than we did before. But now at a position where like we're able to see each other directly, like that could be a bit jarring.
You got super deeper than I thought you were gonna get, but I thought it was just gonna be cool to see each other in person. That's all I was gonna say.
That too. You're right. You're absolutely right. I probably didn't need to go that deep. You're right.
Oh man. Anyways, what do we got on slate for this episode, Julian?
Dude, we have a lot of stuff
to
talk about. This is gonna be one of those episodes where we go through the rundown, the gauntlet,
Mm-hmm.
everything going on in the sports world. We're going to lead off with the sport we don't normally lead off with in the NHL. We're going to talk about the NFL as well. There's a lot of stuff we need to go through there. The NBA is up to. Major League Baseball's opening day is up as well. And Formula One, which, obviously with the episode we had with Will Buxton and the legendary moment of him pointing out your doppelganger.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I've never met Lance Stroll. But easily, Frank, I guess by default, really, Frank is number one and then Lance is number two. Not because I know anything about Lance Stroll as a person. I just think Frank, by default, I think they're just naturally just a notch above Lance Stroll. But let's get to it. I don't want to, unless you're gonna add something to my comment about you being above Lance Stroll in my rankings of lookalikes between you two.
No, I just found that very funny, but no extra comment from me.
Okay, let's get into the NHL first, because last week saw during a game between the Nashville Predators and the Detroit Red Wings, Tim Peel, a longtime referee in the National Hockey League, basically said something that everyone kind of knows and everyone's kind of thinking. Essentially, with not having the quote in front of me, and maybe Frank, you have it, but Tim Peel essentially admitted to the fact that he was essentially game managing with his refereeing, essentially saying that, we have to find a way to make up these calls. And he even alluded to that he got caught on a hot mic, and he said something about how he was making up a penalty essentially for Nashville, and the TV cameras caught it, and we all heard it. And now Tim Peel will no longer be able to referee games in the National Hockey League. Forget about the fact that he was supposed to retire in April. But the NHL said, you know what? We can't have this anymore. We have to put our foot down. This can't stand. Tim Peel, you're done. And I've seen people, Frank, I don't know how much you've seen of it, but I've seen so many people go in on this topic. And we are not the first, and we probably won't be the last person to talk about, the last show at least, to talk about Tim Peel and what he said. I've seen the people who have spoken on it already say that it's either a mix of these two opinions. It's either it was way too harsh, and Tim Peel was saying something that we all know happens, and he should be given a second chance, or Tim Peel, he shouldn't have said that. What was he thinking? The referee, the NHL did the right thing by saying, what, we're not going to have him there. Like, I think it's besides the point. Debating whether or not Tim Peel should be suspended is besides the point. I think the National Hockey League now, as a result of what they did with Tim Peel, they eventually are going to have to do something about the way they have the referees managing games going forward. Because if it's clear again that referees are just going to keep doing this, then what was the point of letting Tim Peel go? And I don't know if you saw this game over the weekend with the Boston Bruins and the New Jersey Devils.
Oh my God.
Some calls being missed and Jack Edwards just having a field day.
I saw that.
I mean, that's one guy. But stuff like that, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's just going to get scrutinized even more going forward. And the fact that the referees, since that Tim Peel incident, are going out of their way to cover their mics and ensure that no one hears what they have to say, or no one knows what they're going to say on their mics because they don't want to be Tim Peeled, it's just going to make them look even worse. The National Hockey League, fine, it may be idealistic. Fine, I might be optimistic as a hockey watcher and hockey media person. But if this just keeps up, the NHL is just going to have to do some kind of massive restructuring with how referees referee games. You can't have a situation where it's the status quo and everyone just wipes their hands clean of saying, you know what, we don't want Tim Peel in this game anymore. You have to do something, especially if you are going to involve more gambling in your games. Look, if it gets to a point where the NHL, this is the last point I'll say, and I'll let you jump in here. Right now, it's kind of, a lot of people still talk about Tim Peel. It's a bit lukewarm right now. We see a situation in the next few games where a referee's bad call costs a team a game. In light of what we've heard, good luck.
Be in trouble, eh? I just have one question for you, because two. So here's the first part. This is not hot mic aside, right? Having a ref on a mic aside, this kind of stuff's not going to change. This has been part of hockey for as long as hockey's been around. Ref makes a mistake, he feels a bit bad. Okay, the next softie, he'll be like, okay, let's send a guy to the box for 2 minutes. I think it's just part of the game at this point. And to have it obviously caught on microphone is unfortunate for Peel. It's not right, of course, and NHL took harsh actions, I should say. But why not integrate a system some sort of like the VAR in soccer to kind of help these guys out? Is that something that you think that can be possible in the game of hockey, to have like the booth review or an extra review to go and make a call correct or incorrect?
So here's what I'll say to your point. So I just want to make sure I get this right here. So
sure.
I'm trying to remember the first thing you had mentioned that really tipped me off here, but I'll go to the second thing that's more immediate here for now. They already have video review, and they already have given the power to coaches to challenge for stuff. And it's still not a clean process. We saw it earlier in the season in that Montreal Canadiens Ottawa Senators game, right? With that game, and I think that was the game where Jesperi Kotkaniemi thought he had a goal and it didn't go in, and the referees ruled it a goal, and it might have been the wrong game. But
anyways, I know what you're talking about.
But still, it led to the other team saying, no, we have to challenge that. And then they do a full review, and then they disallowed a goal. So the video review process isn't even that trusted. There's so much broken and wrong. They have those resources there. If they add VAR, that just might make it worse. It might make it generally worse. And let's be real here. VAR in principle, video assistant review for soccer, in principle, was supposed to be a good idea.
Right.
Can't even trust it in soccer.
Right. So did I tick you off with this one, or did I tick you off with saying it's always been a part of the game, these kind of soft calls?
Yes, because that ultimately leads to the point that I brought up to start. why should it be the norm?
Right.
Why?
Okay.
Like, why should it be the norm? Why is it that we as hockey fans or people who just watch hockey should just be like, all right, well, whatever, that's just how it is. And the NHL gets to be like, well, yeah, of course. I'm going to mention something that I read in a column from Down Goes Brown on The Athletic. Not because I want to plug The Athletic and make people subscribe, but because it's something I did read. And he mentions Tim Peel, and he mentions how, the NHL knows that fans at the end of the day are going to see that sort of stuff along with some of the other warts that it has on its face. And they're just going to be like, well, that's just how it is. What are you going to do? Go to watch the KHL?
No.
What are you going to do? Are Frank, are you so fed up of NHL refereeing that you're going to go, find a way to watch Ligue Nord-Américaine du Hockey and just watch guys play semi-pro hockey in Quebec beat each other up night after night?
Definitely not.
No.
It's a tough one. And you know what? It comes during a season where refereeing in general at the NHL level has been scrutinized to the highest degree. I feel like, compared to other seasons in years past. I mean, I feel like they haven't been. There's been a lot of iffy calls. Hot mic aside, being on the mic aside, there's just been a lot of poor officiating this season, and to have this happen just doesn't help the NHL. Do you think the immediate, essentially firing was warranted? I mean, like just outright no, we'll be reviewing with Tim and team, just straight up announcement and see ya.
Well, what he said demeans the credibility of the game. Like, I hear all these people be like, man, I think it's too harsh and, something like that. Like he's ref so long in the league. I understand that he said something that we all think aloud and we all know kind of happens. It's a whole different story when you put that on wax and everyone knows that. No, like I think as harsh as it seems to certain people, it's the right call. And again, I'll add this about Tim Peel. He's supposed to retire in April. Like,
makes it easier.
It makes it much easier for them to do for them to do a decision like that. So I don't know. You can miss me with people saying like, "Oh, this is too harsh" or whatever. It's at the risk of demeaning the credibility of refereeing in the sport of hockey, and you do not want that. That's something very serious, and you do not want teams or players or fans thinking that already they're thinking just for whatever reason that referees will have it out for their team. You don't want to give people ammunition and think, well, that's true. I don't think it's very much true. It's clearly not, but you don't want people thinking that. And again, especially if the NHL is looking to have gambling more in its view, more in it as part of its day-to-day regimen, like
right,
you can't have that. So no, I don't think it was harsh at all.
Okay.
And Tim Peel, I understand, veteran referee, he's reffed a lot of games. Being a referee is absolutely hard. It is something that I know I could not do. And it's something that if I was to do, it would wear down on me with the fact that you have pressure from leagues to do a good job. Fans and players probably aren't going to like you. And it's just a very tough job to do.
Yeah.
But there's also a reason why I'm not a referee, because I know that's not the job I want to do. So if you're in a situation like that, you have to do the job.
Fair assessment. Slight little pivot here, staying along the lines of hockey and the NHL. The Canadian North Division had its first, COVID cases, postponement of games. Unlike the American teams who have gone through that process a little bit already, this was the first time it happened in Canada for the Canadian teams. What did you make of it? I saw a lot of public opinion on Twitter, on the social medias, saying that it's a bad look or it's pretty impressive that it's taken this long. What do you make of this whole thing?
Man, I don't know where I stand on that. I just think it's just something that just happened, and it's just, I mean, we know the Montreal Canadiens had 2 players on the COVID list, and that's what led to their games and against the Edmonton Oilers being postponed. And they practiced. Well, by the time you all hear this, they practiced yesterday.
Exactly.
So I believe the game they're scheduled to play tonight should be on, being Tuesday. So they missed out on all these games. Look, I just hope that, and I think Canadian general manager Mark Bergevin confirmed one of those 2 players had COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I hope for that player, I don't think they disclosed which of the 2 it was. I hope they've recovered. I hope they're okay. That's first and foremost, because we all know how devastating COVID could be. We all know about how actually, funny I say we know about. We don't know. We know what we know about COVID, and there's still a whole bunch we don't know. So that's what makes this whole thing scary. So I think just kind of going back and forth and being like, oh, well, these teams were fortunate enough to have only had to go through this now, or someone messed up here. Like, besides the point to start. But if we're going to go back and forth with that, I don't know which of those 2 camps I really fall into. I think,
I think I'm more along the lines of I'm kind of shocked it hasn't happened more often and sooner, to be honest. I feel like, especially with the MLB and NFL being the guinea pigs of restarting their leagues. Well, I mean, the NHL had its bubble in the summer, but not a full season with the entire league. They were kind of the guinea pigs, those other 2 leagues. And we saw, teams have players go down for a significant amount of time, game postponements. Anyways, so all that to say is that I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened already, at least here in the Canadian North Division. It has happened elsewhere in the NHL. But yeah, I think that it's unfortunate to say, but it's par for the course at the moment, because like you said, there's stuff we do know and the teams take their precautions, but if a player deviates or a certain staff member deviates for a quick second and they put themselves at risk, well, boom, there you go. You have yourself a case and you have to deal with postponements and whatnot. So,
but here's the thing, like, do we know if it's
exactly
a deviation? Like,
exactly,
we don't know. That's the thing about COVID, right? Like, I know to this point where, up until last week, there were no postponements in the North Division when it came to games with regards to COVID. And now we're seeing that happen. We don't know what happened. And I think it's just, I could get why people would think that, but I think it's, unless you're able to figure out for yourself, I think it's just a bit irresponsible to just kind of just assume someone just deviated. Because what if, like, I don't know what the family situations are for Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Yoel Armia. Do they send their kids to I mean, I don't think either of them have kids, to be honest, but they may have encountered someone who has COVID. Like, I don't know. I don't know how that can happen. It could be a deviation. It could not be a deviation. It could just be like a fluke thing that happened, right? Like, no one knows, right? Like, it's totally possible that, like, in the circle of things you're able to do, one of those people in those circles could somehow get COVID. I'm not willing to, unless it's told to me. Like, I just think it's you just have to be careful with how you might think like someone may have deviated off course or may have, done something wrong. I think it's just something you have to be careful with.
Okay. Gotcha. No, for sure. But anyways, look, like you said, glad that the situation is slowly being resolved. Like you said, by tonight, which is Tuesday, Montreal will be playing the Edmonton Oilers. And but a slight change of leagues here, Julian. Let's get into a bit of NFL talk. Obviously, we've got the draft approaching. We'll have an episode dedicated to the NFL draft with our friend of the show, Seth Galina, of course. But 2 bigger topics to discuss between you and I. The NFL is inching closer to basically approved that of a 17-game schedule. It looks all but confirmed. They've been playing a 16-game schedule since 1978. Obviously, it's quite a while since there's ever been like a modification to a schedule. But obviously, the players are voicing their displeasure. One of them being Alvin Kamara, obviously of the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, this brings a lot more money to the table financially for the league because, you're adding an extra game, that broadcasting deals and whatnot get extended. But for the players themselves, Torrey Smith, remember Torrey Smith, former wide receiver?
I remember Torrey Smith.
Yeah, former
Ravens, right?
Ravens, exactly. He's played for a few other teams. I think he played for the Eagles as well. But he's quite vocal on Twitter, and he said that players have a difficult time suiting up and staying healthy for 16 games. You're seeing bodies falling apart during a 16-game season. That extra game is going to have, maybe a whole slew of extra players going down. What do you take on this, man? I just, obviously for the fans, it's exciting. We get an extra game, but for the players, they're frustrated.
Yeah, and the NFL stands to make more money with the extra games, but the players and the contracts that they're in, it just means though a lot of people are going up be like, hey, bro, you get an extra game check. That game check is going to be a little less because that money they're supposed to make per week is just going to be spread out over an extra week. If I'm a player and the league is looking to improve this, is there any way you can get a second bye week? I know in the CFL they have 18 games in a season that players get 2 bye weeks. So you have to get a second bye week.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If the concern is that you don't want to play so many games because you're worried about the wear and tear on your body through a season, I think you should find a way to advocate for a second bye week, because a 1 bye week on a 17-game schedule, that's, you have to be very careful with that.
I wonder what the negotiation process is like. If they approve a 17-gamer, okay, well can they re-enter a next stage of negotiations for the Players Association to say, hey, fine, you got your 17 games, let's negotiate a bit of more time off for us or something like that. I wonder what that's like, but
that's what I would think. But I don't know how that works. I'm not an expert in NFLPA negotiations. That would just be my thinking if I was an NFL player or someone in the PA or working in the union or whatever. But that's, I guess for us as fans or people who watch the sport, it's interesting to see that there's going to be another game to play. But I just hope that certain fans realize that an extra game is not a positive for every single person.
Right. Exactly. For sure. And our second topic to discuss here, man, a lot of news circulating about Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll say this about Deshaun Watson.
It, please.
So for obviously this is something that it's been unfolding for the better part of a month at this point. If you're not in the know, Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson has had a number of allegations pressed against him, essentially accusing
19 official, and there was a new one today, I believe.
So here's the thing. So we say 19 at this point. And this is how interesting, or this is how ever-changing this situation is. It feels as if almost every few days there are more allegations pressed. So, we have 19 on our notes here. It is entirely possible. I'll just add this disclaimer here. It is entirely possible by the time that you listen to this podcast, there may be a 20th, there may be a 21st, there may be more. I don't know, but that's just how layered this situation is. And I'll just say this. Obviously, not to be obvious about it, this looks terrible. This is a terrible situation. And if it comes out that this is true, I hope Deshaun Watson is disciplined for this. This is absolutely abhorrent and disgusting. A player that, we had him on as a hero on this show, praising him for some of the good stuff he had done off the field. So for him to do this stuff, if it is true, is very disappointing as a fan of the NFL, but also just sad for the victims involved. If this turns out to be the truth. And I think above all that, because we can have a whole conversation about, there's not much of a conversation to say in terms of his prospects as a free agent. It completely changes his outlook here. Who knows what's going to happen? The next thing for him isn't so much for him to find a new place to play. It's what's the league going to do with him. Right. And that's a whole thing in itself. We don't even know what's going to happen with that. But I am happy that or not happy, but I'm still glad that we were able to touch up on this topic in some way, even if we know it's not something that like you could do a whole episode over. It is still something worth acknowledging and still pointing out like this is not a good situation for anyone involved. And I don't want to just, and I'm not glad, but I want to just kind of start off and just say that like it's not a good situation for the victims involved. And this is something that should be taken seriously. And I didn't just want to make the situation just about the football matters too, because obviously that's what we would be in the business for. But I think it's important to mention that off top. But I'll say this about it from a football perspective, you know, considering the league's history with suspending players for off-field matters, wouldn't surprise me to see Deshaun Watson end up in a situation where he does not play like half a season or just at least loses significant time going forward. And at that, I mean, I don't see the Texans letting him go. I don't see any team picking him up right after the fact. It's a bit of a messed up situation with how players in those situations are dealt with.
I saw something on Twitter that said, man, if this whole story is really it can go two ways. It's either we had no clue about the real Deshaun Watson, and that's really concerning and shocking, or this is just the most ridiculous character assassination plot we've ever seen. Like out of the blue. And you know, I was reading an article from ESPN with all of the allegations that came out, and all in quick succession, very close dates to one another, like 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, all spanning from last spring to into the summer and into this fall and during the season as well. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like obviously I know the law or the like you said, the multi-layered aspect behind all this. But from what I read about the plaintiff's transcripts is that a lot of these allegations and the transcripts themselves describe very similar patterns in multiple ways. So obviously the plaintiff's line of work, how both the plaintiff and Deshaun Watson came into contact. It was a lot of times he reached out to them, and then obviously the end result of what ended up happening. If you do a bit of research or read that article from ESPN, there's, like I said, a lot of similar patterns, which is anyways, just something I picked up on, but very concerning stuff. Very concerning.
Also, Deshaun's also said, like, or at least, I think I know he's got his defense attorney up there. And I think previously when he was asked about like, if there's anything on his phone, he says he's obviously denied them. And he's said that like he's willing to cooperate and at least, hey, if they want to look through my phone and see stuff, he said that too. This is a very this is not an easy story to cover by any stretch of the imagination. And I hope if you're listening to this podcast and you've heard Frank and I kind of go through it, you've come away with it at least knowing a little more about what's going on or have some sense of what's going on if you didn't know already. I mean, considering how much we both pay attention to the NFL, it's a story we're going to be following for a good chunk of the offseason. I want to know what is next, because I don't know if the allegations that we have, the number we brought up now, again, it's entirely possible by the time you're listening to this podcast, the number has changed. And I don't know where the bottom is. I don't know what the next step is. I don't know when trials or anything like that are going to happen. I don't know what's next. It's just something that we're going to follow. And it's something that I hope people take seriously and don't just kind of trivialize it as this just matter that's like, oh no, Deshaun Watson, what's going to happen with his football career? It's a lot more than that.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, side note, this has probably been one of the, I feel like I've been following this season from the draft, prospect, research to obviously these side stories that happen in the offseason. I feel like this is the most in tune I've been with the NFL ever in my life.
I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I cut you out there.
No, my bad. I realized I kept saying I agree. I was just gonna say, like, and maybe it has to do with the fact that we had the guests that we had in like Robert Mays and Seth Galina and the people we've talked to throughout the NFL season and beyond. Like, maybe that plays a reason into it. But I think this is the most in tune with the NFL offseason I've been around in a while, because around now, like before the draft, I'm just chilling. I'm just like, all right, like there's other sports on. I don't necessarily need to pay attention to the NFL, but excuse me, there's been, I mean, the trades and the Deshaun Watson story. We didn't even talk about the fact that Niners have traded into the third overall pick for the upcoming draft. There's been a lot going on this offseason.
The stories don't stop. Honestly, I think NFL, I know NBA trade deadline, which we'll get into right now, actually. I know the NBA offseason and the trades that happen are quite crazy. Unlike any other sport when it comes to trading all-stars or for first-round picks and whatnot. But the NFL is trying to keep up. They have stories almost every day. Now, switching over to, in fact, the NBA, Julian, I know we wanted to touch on the trade deadline. We have Kyle Lowry, who was in some trade speculation. Don't know if he was going to stay in Toronto or exit. He ended up staying. Was that surprising to you?
Yeah, it was very surprising to me at first, because I don't know if you follow a lot of people on Raptors Twitter, for about 3 or 4 for like 2 weeks, people were just preparing themselves for it to be Kyle Lowry's last game. They were like, oh, it's Kyle's last game. Oh, it's Kyle's last game. And then very much so before the trade deadline, Kyle Lowry walks out during a Raptors win. As the buzzer sounds, he looks at the camera, he does the peace sign, and he walks off. And then he does a media availability for like 20 minutes, and Drake crashes it. It feels like the end. And my whole time looking at
It's a funny
Kyle,
movie, by the way. It's fun. This is the end. You ever watch that one?
Oh, yes, with Jay Baruchel. Really great movie. I really enjoyed it. The whole time I just kept thinking about Kyle. And I kept thinking, like, well, how does he feel about going through all of this? You know, like, we're not athletes. We are not in situations where we have to worry about being traded from one place to another. But I can only imagine that if you are in that situation, there's some kind of emotional toll that's taken on you, right? Like, you don't know what your future is. You just kind of want it to play out. And like, I wanted, like, Kyle Lowry getting traded. It's not to say I root for people to get traded, but if it was going to get traded, you know, just do it. So that way you put him out of his misery, so to speak, and he can go on with his life and play on another team. The Raptors did that with Norm Powell, who, I don't know if you saw the Raptors and the Trailblazers, where Norm Powell was traded to, played against each other over the weekend. Norm Powell gets on the court, walks over to the Raptors side of the floor, thinking he still plays with the Raptors, immediately realizes it, and then goes back to his own end. It's tough to adjust playing on a new team, especially when you almost immediately have to play your old team not too long after you get traded. So for Kyle Lowry, I was ready for him to leave. And I think a lot of people were too. A lot of people were ready to give him his flowers as the greatest Raptor of all time. But now that he's still a Toronto Raptor, and he's presumably going to finish out the season, and who knows what his future will be with the team now, you know, I you know what? Good on Masai Ujiri. Good on Masai Ujiri and the Raptors for just not giving up Kyle Lowry for peanuts on the dollar, because it's very clear there were teams interested. The Lakers were interested. The Miami Heat were interested. There was talks of him being shipped to his hometown in Philly. You know, there was no shortage of teams interested in Kyle Lowry, but Masai Ujiri very much wanted something for Kyle Lowry. And how do you think Raptors fans would have felt if they would have gotten like small bits and pieces for a championship winning guard who would get
I was just gonna say that this name
best player of their franchise
carries weight in Toronto, man. He carries weight as a Raptor. I mean, this guy was on that title run. I mean, let alone, you know, what all the other years he's served as a Raptor. I mean, when someone goes through that epic of a run and ending up with a championship, a world title, of course people are going to be on edge. I mean, you could only imagine the player himself, but the fans too. They're thinking, man, are we going to lose this guy who we saw? And they already lost Kawhi, right? Even though that was like a 1-year thing, not as much of a longevity with the Raptors. But I get what you're saying. So you applaud Ujiri.
I mean, like, you know, maybe in the offseason, if something happens and he doesn't stay, you're like, oh,
right.
Wow, the Raptors lost him for nothing, I guess. But
That's a good
I
point.
mean, imagine if the Raptors made that trade with Miami and they just got like Duncan Robinson back and some picks.
Mm.
Like that's it. That's all you get for Kyle Lowry, like an all-star guard who presumably will be really useful for a team trying to win an NBA championship. You get back like a bit player. Like no disrespect to Duncan Robinson, he's an NBA player, but like I totally understand why a guy like Masai Ujiri would want to play hardball with teams to be like, okay, fine. You want him
Mm.
as a rental player, or you want him to help him on your championship run. Like, we need assets coming back. Like,
Yeah, I
it
got you.
just doesn't make sense. But yeah, Kyle Lowry staying in Toronto, surprising, but good for him. He gets to finish the season in Toronto. Who knows what'll happen to him after that?
Any other names come strike you as if they stayed or if they left? I know Blake Griffin. Speaking of All Stars, you mentioned Lowry. Blake Griffin was traded to the Nets. You know, joining a bunch of names over in Brooklyn. What did you take of that?
So I'll mention this with Blake Griffin, and I'll kind of broaden it out with the Brooklyn Nets here. There's a situation now. A lot of people have been making jokes about the players they've been able to assemble, with Blake Griffin joining them, LaMarcus Aldridge also signing with them. Someone put up a YouTube comment where like the Nets could put out a starting five of James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Blake Griffin. That's an all-star team lineup, bro. Like maybe from like 2014, 2015, whenever Lob City was popping, that could realistically back then be an all-star team lineup. And like, look, I think the Brooklyn Nets, fine. They want to do the Thanos thing and assemble all the Infinity Stones to try to make it to an NBA Finals. So be it. You got to do it in the playoffs. Like, but I think it's cool to see that they've tried to retool that way. And not to be lost in the free agent market. Andre Drummond, who was in trade talks for a couple weeks, the Raptors were actually linked to him. The Cleveland Cavaliers bought him out, and then the Lakers picked him up. So we've just seen over the last few days, it's an arms race essentially between those two teams. But I would be remiss if I did not mention the Denver Nuggets, who made some moves, including getting Aaron Gordon from the Orlando Magic. The Magic were shipping off some pieces, but the Nuggets, this is just my feel here, and maybe I'm wrong or whatever. The Lakers, obviously, you're looking at them. You look at the Clippers, you look at the Bucks and all that. I want to see the Denver Nuggets do well. They have an MVP candidate, Nikola Jokic. Jamal Murray is just too damn fun to watch. And they shook a lot of people last year, and I want to see them do well. If the Lakers are not able to get everyone healthy in time for the playoffs, like I'd love to see the Denver Nuggets kind of show up everybody and go to the finals. I don't know if that'll happen, but I would love to see it.
I mean, Aaron Gordon, wasn't he a fourth overall selection back in, what was it, 2010? 20, so he was a high pick.
I don't remember what his thing was. Obviously, the big thing about him is that he's been robbed in slam dunk competitions, but like,
Well, no. I was just gonna say, going back to what you said about you want to see the Denver Nuggets do well. He hasn't seen much playoff, much play of the playoffs at all, really, in Orlando. So
a lot of first round exits for the Orlando Magic. A lot. Like, they're a team that is like, a sneaky team that could sneak into the playoffs. Maybe they'll take a game or two off you in the first round, and that's it. But that's not good enough, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be in that middle ground where you're too good to tank, and then you're not good enough to be a true contending team. So yeah, the Orlando Magic have to do what they have to do.
Exactly. Before we round out the episode, a few things we wanted to talk about here was obviously we have MLB's opening day is approaching, Julian. So all that hype during the offseason of all these players going to new teams. You think of Francisco Lindor. You think of, George Springer in Toronto, even though he got hurt, right? That's unfortunate. But opening day is always an exciting time of the year. It sucks. You know why it sucks? Because I believe this past weekend, or maybe the one prior, would have been those preseason games at the Olympic Stadium. You always have that last weekend of the MLB preseason where the Toronto Blue Jays come into town and play an opposing team for a little series before the season kicks off. That didn't happen this year. I attended every time. Did you go at all?
Actually, I guess so. Last year, I was supposed to go. It was supposed to be the Blue Jays and the Yankees,
Yeah.
and myself and a good friend of mine were supposed to go watch the Yankees. We were
Yeah.
supposed to. I mean, you see the Yankee cap. They're a Yankees fan as well. We were supposed to go watch the Yankees play, and then COVID messed that up. But the year before, I got to. I think it was the Blue Jays and the Milwaukee
Yep.
Brewers, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
Actually, this is one of the rare times I can do this on camera here.
You know what's funny? I've got a funny story about that game as well. So go ahead, share. Let's go.
So I got to cover at least one of those two games, and I got to hang out around BP, and I snagged myself one of these.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
just kind of loose, hanging around, and I managed to get myself an official 2019 spring training ball. Also, a notable Montreal. Well, I guess he's pretty known worldwide. Georges St. Pierre was taking BP with the Milwaukee Brewers that day.
Didn't Brendan
really
Gallagher
cool.
and Jeff Petrie do that as well? I feel like that might have been that year. Anyways, they
Probably.
yeah, probably.
Yeah, but like, yeah, that was fun, and that was still like, that was still around. I mean, not to go hyper local and talk about the Montreal efforts of them bringing baseball back, but Steven Bronfman, who's been doing a lot of efforts to try to bring a team in the city, was going around talking about it and all that, and a lot of media attention was going there. It was a really interesting time, and that was the last of those Jays Montreal games I was at. So 2019, I didn't go every single year, but I tried to be there as often as I could.
I was at that game in 2019. Well, obviously they had a few games, but I was at that one of the games on that weekend between the Brewers and the Jays because my brother actually at the time played for the Baseball Academy of Canada. So he was a ball boy. He was a ball boy at the game, and he warmed up the outfielders. So he pitched and catched with Christian Yelich, Lorenzo Cain. He met them in the locker room as well, and I even got a signed baseball from Josh Hader, the lefty.
My God.
Yes. So it was. Wow. Anyways, it was a cool weekend. I missed those times very much, and I wish we could.
Is that the baseball that's in the glass case behind you?
No, that's a different one actually. It's the Hader one. I think might actually be in his room, but anyways, we have it here somewhere. But yeah, Julian, who are you looking forward to real quick? Because we got just a few more topics before we close out here. Who are you looking forward to on opening day? I mean, really throughout the entire season, but opening day is coming.
Jays, obviously, I want to see how well they'll do. I want to know about the window for the Yankees in the division that they're in. The San Diego Padres probably won the offseason. This is probably going to be the year we're going to be focusing on them more than I probably ever focused on the San Diego Padres in my life.
Yes.
The Dodgers, obviously, we didn't mention the fact that they acquired Trevor Bauer. They obviously being the reigning champions, they're going to get some looks as well. Tampa Bay Rays are a team that, I feel it's been a bit quiet with them especially for a team that did as well as they did to go to the World Series. I think there's quite a few interesting teams to pay attention to this year. St. Louis, they got like Nolan Arenado at third now, who's arguably the best third baseman in the game. Like, there's a lot of interesting movement that's happening this offseason, and some teams are going to make playoffs this year that I don't know if they have the extra team than this year anymore, but like, I'm really interested in the races we're going to be seeing this year. So yeah, some of those teams I mentioned, I think are going to be worth watching for everybody.
For sure. Two things to end off on the baseball note is 100% going to have my eyes on that NL West race, Dodgers, Padres, see if the Padres live up to the hype. I mean, it might be hard not to with all the players they have, but also something that Dan Schulman said last week was, I mean, obviously the AL East are going to think of the Yankees, but the Rays, they're just super consistent at homegrown talent. Even if they lost Blake Snell and Charlie Morton, they still got a heck of a lineup in front of them. So from coast to coast, a few storylines to keep track of this season. But moving on, Julian, over this weekend, we had our first Formula One race.
Hey, how'd it go for you, bud?
Pretty good.
You finished 10th, right?
Yeah, I got a point. It was a good race. Man, I let off. I gave an overtake on the last lap to rookie Yuki Tsunoda. Shouldn't have made that happen, but no. Jokes aside,
don't be so hard on yourself, Lance.
For maybe some new listeners who are still listening, we had on episode 6 we had award-winning Formula One reporter Will Buxton on the show. And if you guys are at all interested in Formula One, I highly suggest you go and watch Drive to Survive. Julian, have you watched? I mean, nothing.
Never
Eh?
watched it.
Damn.
Never.
Okay. Wow. You should definitely get on that. Anyways,
Okay.
fantastic. Quick 10-episode documentary about what happens on a season-to-season basis and in Formula One. Anyways, we chatted with Will Buxton. He said I look like Lance Stroll. For those new viewers, go and check out Lance Stroll and take a look at me. There's some resemblance, apparently. But anyways, the first race of the F1 season, we had Lewis Hamilton win. I know that, for those who didn't watch the race, might not sound shocking, but it was a fantastic way to kick off the Formula One season with, Mercedes being the early favorites, but Red Bull's got a heck of a good car. Max Verstappen had a very questionable overtake, which resulted in him giving back a position to Lewis, and Lewis kept that position and won the race. So anyways, it was a really, really good one. Julian, if I know you saw the highlights, but I'm just glad, there's so many sports. It's unreal. It's unreal.
Yeah, man. I caught the highlights of that race and it was action packed. I mean, and I know a lot of people are worried that like, oh, well, Lewis Hamilton's winning all of these races. That was still a pretty good race to watch. It was still fun to at least see like Max Verstappen kind of go head to head with Lewis Hamilton here. I think at least if these races give us that, and it's not just a straight win for Lewis every time, I can at least, as an occasional viewer of the sport, walk away happy being like, hey, we were able to watch a competitive race. I know some friends were also feeling the same thing as well.
Dude, I'm telling you, this year, I know we're North Americans, so obviously hockey, football, basketball, baseball dominate. But this season, there's going to be so many battles. It's not going to be, at least, from what you take away from the testing and in race one, it's not just going to be Mercedes on top. You have Red Bull, who has a car that can compete with them. And not only that, you've got a midfield battle that might be the most interesting. You have the McLarens, the Ferraris, the AlphaTauris. Pierre Gasly qualified fifth. He qualified fifth. Obviously, he didn't have a great showing. He finished outside of the points, but he qualified fifth in an AlphaTauri, which, I mean, it shows their speed. Obviously, Yuki Tsunoda is another rookie who's Gasly's teammate, who's exciting. I know I'm forgetting one team in there. Oh, yeah, there's Aston Martin and obviously Alpine with the return of Fernando Alonso. So many fun storylines. So it's easy to get a little bored of the season quickly because you see, Mercedes running away with it. And that might be the case, but I know for a fact there's going to be much more competition this year. So
is this 2006 all of a sudden? We're looking at a roster that has a Schumacher, an Alonso, and a Vettel.
Crazy. And a Raikkonen.
Like, there's a lot of interest.
Get this, Julian. Get this. Raikkonen's Yuki Tsunoda, the rookie for AlphaTauri, was 9 months old when Kimi Raikkonen had his first race.
That's
insane. He's been in Formula One for 20 years. So.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
The season could be really fun.
Very fun.
Might have to get Will Buxton back to break down the season.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Anyways, moving on to our last, closing statements here for this episode. It's been a good one. I've enjoyed catching up with you about sports.
Me too.
You wanted to bring someone up off the top, I believe. And right?
Yes. There's a really interesting story that I came across from The Ringer. And I mean, I'm into play-by-play stuff and commentary.
Same.
And all of that. And like, I love that world. Are you familiar? You're obviously familiar, you being a Cincinnati Bengals fan, of course, with the workings of Tom Brenneman, the Fox Sports, well, now former Fox Sports commentator, who was also a longtime guy for the Cincinnati Reds.
Absolutely. Tom did work he does work elsewhere for Fox, or did work elsewhere for Fox around the NFL and MLB, but he did cover the Cincinnati Reds and the Cincinnati Bengals for the most part. And of course, son of great announcer Marty Brenneman. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You should read how A Drive into Deep Left Field by Castellanos became the perfect meme for these strange times. If you're not familiar with the story, Brenneman last year during a broadcast for a Reds game was caught on a hot mic. Interesting. We started the episode talking about an issue with a hot mic. We're ending the episode with a story about someone getting caught on a hot mic. In this case, someone who should have really known better. This person, Brenneman, was caught uttering a homophobic slur. And what ended up happening was he, in partway through the game, tried to apologize for what he had done.
Yep.
And as he was apologizing, the game goes on and he calls this home run hit by Nick Castellanos. And the article basically delves into how this meme is essentially a meme. This apology has basically devolved into this meme that has managed to this point continue into internet culture, which normally with memes and stuff, we see the shelf life could be like a week. It could be like a month. We're talking about something that happened like last summer or part of last year.
Yeah, it was in the summer.
It's still going. Yeah, and it's still going to this day. Tom Brenneman, who, look, I think what he did was abhorrent. I think the fact that he was able to do that gives me pause, honestly. Like that's it kind of shook me as someone who actually liked his work. But I'm really into the fact that this has turned into a super powerful meme that has gone past Twitter. And in the article, they bring up, there's a really interesting a broadcaster, I forget in which part of America he's in, but he does this highlight pack that has Cincinnati Reds and I think the Padres playing. And it has a Fernando Tatis injury. So he's talking about the Tatis injury. And then he cuts into that to describe a home run hit by Nick Castellanos before breaking back to talk about Tatis's injury. Basically, like, the meme potential has gone beyond just writing a tweet. It's now gone into people just doing it for their everyday jobs in sports and in sports media. And it's worth the read. I don't know if you've, I mean,
I know I got to. You got to send me the link.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll send you the story. I mean, I'm sure you've also seen the clip itself.
Yes,
if you haven't, it's very much cringy. Like, imagine that you're trying to do a whole apology and you're trying to come across as genuine to everybody, and you still feel it in yourself to call a home run. Like, could you imagine that? Like, really? Like, could you imagine if I was just, trying to be serious about something and just trying to, implore to you that, I pride myself on being this important person and someone who's just, all about these important things. And there's a deep drive into left field by Nick Castellanos, and that'll be a home run. So that'll make it a 4-0 ball game. I don't know if I'm going to be on this mic again. Like, could you imagine that?
Yeah. It's like man, I don't know if this is, how last week Dan Shulman told us how he had to manage calling the assassination of Osama bin Laden.
Nah, that's different.
Managing
that's
the
different.
two. No. I'm not saying
different.
Of course, but
that's
it's like
different.
Two different things happening at the same time, and you have to. But obviously, Tom's is. Yeah, that was just like you said.
That's different. Like, Dan Shulman. I mean, we're talking about the most wanted man in the world finally meeting his end, and you're trying to be like, okay, well, damn, like, this baseball game is secondary to the story happening.
Right.
We're talking about a guy who said something completely idiotic while he thought no one would hear him. And instead of taking the moment seriously, he just says, well, like, you know what? Like, he just doesn't. And now he's calling baseball in Puerto Rico somewhere.
That's a shame. You know why? And we'll end this off here. But at least on the Tom note, is that like you said, I really enjoyed his work. I know we really enjoy our play-by-plays, our broadcasters. Great voice, really, called games well, was smooth. Anyways, that's the point. That's the point that you said that is just frustrating because he was a great play-by-play guy.
But I mean, I'll say this too, like, what he did, just is mad disrespectful. And like, I don't want to make it sound like, oh no, like it's a damn shame because he was this great play-by-play guy. Like, no, like, it doesn't matter who you are. You can't be saying that stuff in private or public. Like, you can't be out here uttering homophobic slurs. Like, it's a just punishment for him. And
no, absolutely. You're right, dude. You're right.
I hope he's taking the time to learn about how impactful these words can be to people.
Yeah.
I hope he's done the work. That's all you can do. Anyway.
We enjoy ending our episodes with a little bit of heroes and zeros. I ought to be quite frank with you. You see what I did there? I went with I went
That's a real
with
knee slapper, Frank.
huge knee slapper. I have my hero. I didn't have a zero, to be honest. Do you
How
have a
about this?
zero?
I have a zero. You
Okay.
have a hero. So we can combine those two together. How about that? Do you want to do the hero first? Or you want to do a zero?
Go for your zero.
All right, cool. So we did not mention this in our NHL segment, but one of the funniest things to happen in the NHL season took place last week during a game between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. The Ottawa Senators, in overtime, had the potential of going on a 3-on-1. Thomas Chabot with the puck goes off Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He keeps in the offensive zone, leads to a goal. And then you see General Manager Pierre Dorion of the Ottawa Senators with some drink in his hand, chucks it in the box that he's in. It has since been memed the world over. There's one of the best memes we've seen that at least I've seen. There's a video going around of Joe Biden stepping onto Air Force One and he's stumbling as he's trying to go up the steps. There's an edit where you have Pierre Dorion chucking his drink at Joe Biden.
Saw it.
Here's why I think this is worthy of a zero. It's not so much for Pierre Dorion. It's to, I guess, our lack of research and cunning eye for knowing things. How is it that we have played this video over and over and over and nobody can identify what he drank? We live in a society where we are able to figure out, what Kanye West ate for breakfast or Kim Kardashian is wearing on Instagram. People are willing to put that information out for us, but there are people out here who are willing to do the same and delve into these weird pockets of information to find this info. How come we don't know what Pierre Dorion drank? I'm just going to give my head a shake here. This is absolutely incredible. I have people wondering people are like, oh, it's not coffee. Oh, is it tea? What does he drink? We should know this. This is the journalism we require in
investigative journalism, you'd say, eh?
How do we not know what he drank? And I give NHL media as a whole, as a joke, of course, in jest, the zero of the week for not being able to identify what Pierre Dorion was drinking when he chucked a drink following his team's overtime loss.
You're calling all of social media out. That I did not know you were going to go there.
Well, come on. Like, at this point, it's ridiculous.
Right.
How do we not know? Anyway, I digress.
That's a good one. I did not know you were heading there at all. So, hey, if people are out there and want to do a bit of investigative journalism, investigative research, go and, investigate those pixelated versions of whatever he was drinking. But to shift over to the hero of the week, this weekend, Francis Ngannou defeated Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight title in the UFC. So my hero of the week is Francis Ngannou. From rags to riches, his story is now closely pieced all together. I won't call it complete, obviously, because he's still competing. His story is not complete, but he grew up in an extremely underprivileged community in Bati, Cameroon. He fled his home country, risked his life to find a better future for himself. He traveled through Nigeria to Niger to Algeria. He ended up in Spain. He worked various odd jobs to make ends meet. At 26, he decided to move to Paris, France. He barely had any money to his name. He didn't have any friends when he moved over to France, and he did all this to pursue a professional boxing career. Now you can imagine what this man's been through already, and to pursue something like that at the age of 26 in a different country, it's big stuff. Obviously, we now know how that journey has set out and has turned out for him. So a huge congrats to him for being the current UFC heavyweight champion of the world. This man deserves a Players Tribune story. I would love to see that and read that. And, he really is an inspiration for for really anyone who's down in the dumps. Really, doesn't seem like there could be greener pastures on the other side. But more so, he is a complete motivation and inspiration for the people of Cameroon and back in his hometown. I don't know if you saw the video of those of his fellow country people celebrating his victory. Ariel Helwani posted it. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not see that.
So, anyways, there's this video where there's a good amount of people outside and in chairs, watching on a big screen what it seemed like, and they're celebrating as he wins in live time. So, it clearly meant
That's awesome.
a lot to these people. Anyway, so he's my hero. Oh, I misspoke there. He's my hero, because man, what a story for Francis Ngannou. So, and congrats to him, heavyweight champion of the world, defeating one of the most decorated fighters in heavyweight history.
I have to say, full marks to you for taking the Hero Zero seriously while I went the joke route. That's okay, because on this show, you get serious stuff. You also get joke stuff as well. And with that, I think we've covered pretty much everything we wanted to cover on this week's edition of the Waterboys podcast. A lot to go through in the sporting world, whether it's the NFL, whether it's the NHL, whether it's an NBA. We even tacked on Formula One to our rundown, and I enjoyed it. I very much enjoy catching up with you, as always, whether we have an interview to do or whether it's just us talking. If you enjoy us, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Also subscribe to us on YouTube as well. The Waterboys WM on Twitter is where we're at, and the Waterboys_podcast is where you can find us on Instagram. I think that pretty much does it in terms of housekeeping stuff. I don't know if there's anything else I miss. Obviously, as I do week in, week out, I have to go through the checklist of stuff to make sure before we wrap this baby up.
We are done. You like you said, you cleaned up real nice, Julian. Hit it out of the park. All right, man.
Yeah,
that's it. We'll be back next week as always. Same place, same time, Tuesdays. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed. It helps out. Leave a comment, a rating. It apparently helps out. The important people say that's an important thing to do over on the podcast streaming platform. So do that if you got a second. But on behalf of Julian McKenzie, I am Frank Pavan. We'll be back next week with another episode. Take care. Stay safe. Be well.
Peace.